I didn't want to have to do this. But sometimes we got to let things go halfway done instead of procrastinating, holding on to them, and hoping to perfect them and never really letting them go at all. So if that's your situation, just let it go, whatever it is in your life. For me, it's this podcast episode. It's a little different. We flew out our guest from LA, and because we flew him out, we decided to take extra time, and it turned into 3 episodes. That's right, a 3-part episode. We flew our guest out from LA. We didn't intend on it being so long, but it did. It was an extremely fascinating conversation, very eye-opening, and for a little bit of reference, we did shoot this episode about 2 or 3 days before the earthquakes in Turkey. A couple of quick announcements. My band Toss, we will be playing our first show, opening up for Blatzenia, which I also do keys for. It's going to be a very fun Friday, this March 3rd at Tractor Brewing Company. Go check out our Instagram or, any of those other social media outlets for more information. I'll attach the link in the description below because you never know what kind of freaks are on YouTube. No, for real, though. If you can't catch us live, we will be streaming a lot of these band rehearsals, whether it's my band Toss or the band Blatzenia, which I do keys for. It will be streamed for now on twitch.tv/delaostudios. Our content is always free, as is hitting that like and subscribe button. It means the absolute world to me. You might want to check out some of the other stuff we got going on. A lot of things are coming. So with that, what were we talking about?
Nice.
Cool. Welcome to Riches and Rags, episode number 23. Today, my guest, his name is Taliy.
Thank you so much.
Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Taliy. And it's a pleasure. Yeah, I've been knowing your brother for a while. We met each other in Santa Monica and went surfing together. And it's so cool that he was watching my Instagram stories and he had some questions regarding what is this thing that Taliy is constantly posting about? What is this creative society? So right now, creative society is, I guess, tracking attention, especially with our situation with YouTube. We became probably the first organization who were massively banned on YouTube for no reason at all, no explanation. But instead of just going switching to Rumble or whatever, we decided to start a wave of this disobedience. We decided to use all our platforms and everything to say it out loud that we disagree that one platform took over 90% of video host and streaming, and they use the fact that they, along with Google, are the biggest search engines, and they basically have a monopoly. It's a bold movement. Yeah, we know we are just a small group of people compared to 8 billion people living in this world. But what we have seen that this message resonated coincidentally with so many people who were also feeling the same thing. So right now, hashtag YouTube repression and hashtag YouTube against humanity is one of the most viral hashtags on Twitter. If you go there in trending, it's going to pop up. And guys, I think that's one of the very special moments in the history which never going to be repeated, when technologies are right there for us to communicate and where people can use it to actually unite and demand their rights. Something that we have not been doing for a while because we took for granted the rights that previous generations passed to us.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit of catching up time because the internet popped out, and then what was it, pornography was one of the biggest things. Took a little bit of time before people started really having conversation and discussions, and this is what we should be using the internet for. It's one of the more powerful things, I think, is. We also have a guest today, too, before we forget to acknowledge him, Mr. Jason Bell. This is the first time in our podcast we've had a web chat guest, so he is colleagues and partners with Taliy here.
All the way from Detroit, Michigan.
From Detroit, Michigan. Right on. But, like you were saying, it is absolutely incredible that from any point in the world in real time we can just converse and have real conversations. It's unfortunate that YouTube's taken you down. And you said it when they took you down in mass. Let's talk numbers. You have how many YouTube channels and how many got taken down so far?
At least 150 languages, but people keep joining from different regions. And in multiple
Okay.
countries, sometimes you can have multiple languages within the same country. So, like in African countries, it's sometimes different languages. And why was it important for people who join in and they resonate with the message? They know what Global Crisis Conference or Forum is about. It's very important. And they think that, oh, if it's in English, then people can understand. But then we were having this chat with a person from Pakistan, and they say, oh, in our local language, basically there are like 20 million people, which is like 10% of population of Pakistan, but it's 20 million people
It's a lot.
who do not speak English. They speak their local language. So it's super important to get this message to everyone. And as you said, use internet for the right thing, not only for like having fun, and we all love having fun and watching movies and so on, but we can use it for something meaningful, because for so many decades we've been convinced that we have enemies from here, enemies from there, and that's why we have to sacrifice certain freedoms. And now we connect to people from all over the world, and we see, no, the politicians just have been manipulating us, saying that we have enemies somewhere. I speak to people from everywhere, and they all want the same thing. They want to do well. They have their freedoms.
Absolutely.
They want their kids to be educated. They want to have normal health care. And what's funny? The moment they come in here to United States, we communicate to them, and that's the beauty of this country. We can communicate to people from all over the world, and we see it's the very same people. So I feel like in that sense, we're kind of entitled really to be a special nation that has this potential to take human freedoms on the next level.
For the audience, for a little context, where are you from?
Originally, Kyiv, Ukraine. I've been living in Los Angeles, California for at least 1/3 of my life. I'm 33 right now. I moved here when I was 20-something, my
Nice.
early 20s. So U.S. feel like home. And I've been accepted here as I've never had any issues with the locals. Like, they've been so welcoming since day one and so much support. I feel like this is what it should be like all over the world.
That's actually good to hear. As an American, I'm glad to hear that you were welcomed into the country in a positive light. I studied abroad in China for a bit of time in college, and in America, they say a lot of negative things about China. And when I got there, I was warmly welcomed. It was a pleasant surprise how nice and hospitable all the locals were. Like you're saying, people are people everywhere. They want to do good for the most part. There are some bad people, but for the most part, people are trying to do the good thing and the right thing out there.
I believe 99% of people are really, really good people, to the point when people are not being manipulated purposely by politicians and sometimes religious leaders. And that is actually that's the answer we got from Arnold Schwarzenegger when we asked him this question during when he had the Q&A session. He said, in California, we have a perfect example how people can live together in peace and harmony, no matter what religion, nationality, or whatever. And if they are not artificially being clashed against each other. And that's a very important topic. We should not wait for those who divide people to start uniting. We, people, should start grassroots movement for the higher meaning, higher freedoms.
Proactive instead of reactive.
And that's something we have to discuss as well, because in this fast pace of the world of technologies, we cannot afford to be reactive. Like, somebody who's coming up with the next big technology can just take over the whole industries in a click of a button, and we're not gonna even see it coming until it's too late. And the same thing with media freedoms. The market got monopolized so fast. And this is something that we should be proactive, because reaction here, we've seen it with Google when they rolled out their advertisements, which were freakishly exact.
You mean tailored to the person's likings? Like if I were to get an ad...
You just mentioned tennis ball, and you're gonna see the ad of tennis balls right away.
Yeah.
You can mention dog food for the first time. You don't have a dog.
Do you think that's uncomfortable?
I think they've been mostly using it for the purpose of pushing ads and making money, which is not the worst thing. But right now, with international organizations like United Nations signing these agreements with them and censoring people, we see it's being pushed to next level. Now, Google dropped their motto. Their unofficial motto was don't be evil until 2015, and then they dropped it.
The what?
They started as a
What?
garage. They started as a garage. Yeah, pull it up if Cameron can pull it up.
Yeah,
on
let's
this.
pull the old Google motto up. That's
Yeah.
weird. Cameron, can I get just a little bit more gain in my channel?
When
He sounds great.
when they started as this garage startup, they promised we're never gonna become this evil company from Terminator movie. But they dropped that motto in 2015.
Don't be evil. Why? I mean, it's a good motto.
But then they replaced it with "do the right thing," but they didn't specify it for who, because it seems like doing the right thing is only
Yeah.
applicable to stakeholders or maybe a couple of people at the top of that
Wow.
pyramid of power.
Because evil is clear. It's an objective
Yeah.
bad thing. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you think that at some point Google got compromised with the morals?
I see it popped up right now because we see the CEO of YouTube, which is part of Google, right? And this woman, Susan Wojcicki, she became CEO of YouTube. Well, of course, she's well educated and so on. She's graduated from UCLA. Many people graduated from UCLA, but not too many people have their sister married to the founder of Google, right? So that was her way into becoming a CEO of this organization. And now she's at the World Economy Forum. She says, we're taking a proactive stance at fighting against disinformation. And then the question arises, what does it mean? Who empowered you to fight against certain things which you consider to be, what is it? Is it illegal? That's one thing, that's legal field. But is it just your corporate inner, let's say, guidelines? And then they call them community guidelines, but they have never been discussed with the community.
Well, yeah, that's a tricky thing. Who is
Who
the
is
community in the community guidelines? Because we all know there are those guidelines.
They have to be transparent. Most of the time, we've seen this on
Yeah.
Twitter when people post in this email, which are very broad. They say YouTube is a safe space, and we permanently delete your channel because it violated our community guidelines, and they just drop in you a link to their generalized page on which you can find anything. It's anything, and they never specified what is it exactly. What we noticed that people asking these questions and nobody's answering them, and it looks like one-sided street.
The answer I think that people get is it's a private company, so they can do whatever they want.
And this brainwashed idea got indoctrinated into so many heads that people don't even realize this is not just some like coffee shop or a local retail store which has so many stores. Like you can go to another one if you rejected service in this one. This is a global monopoly in the field of information, and information is essential. The whole point of creating this country, United States, was to create a free country in which democracy can thrive. At least that was the purpose. And the very first amendment in 1791 was passed for freedom of speech for a reason. And then we have international agreements signed by all countries, United Nations, the Declaration of Human Rights, and the Article 19 specifies that right to share information cannot be violated, not by any country or state, and of course not by any company within the state. But here we have this global octopus which took over the whole world and says, oh, we're just a private company. We can reject service to anyone. Well, that doesn't work like that. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but is there any inconsistency in here?
No, not at all. It's an interesting conversation in regards to this, violation of what one says versus what one does, and that gray area. I like how you put how it's been indoctrinated though into people's heads because people somehow still think of like Amazon or Google as like this small mom and pop and it's like no, they literally have access to every facet of your life, right? And so a bigger conversation needs to happen around these things and who has access to information and the big part who is the community like that all these companies refer to that they protect as their assets, right? It's interesting. I'm enjoying the conversation so far.
Yeah, and not just that. We see that this global monopoly is actively fighting for its dominance. We see that TikTok took US by the storm. It's the most successful media platform. No one has that reach and that popularity within such a short period of time. And then all of a sudden we start hearing this is a Chinese something network which sells intelligence. And it wasn't up until now when I started researching to find out that behind all this allegation, finances of Google. Google's horns taken out of this story. Behind every story, every article on the thread of TikTok, that is Google. And they say, oh, they sell their data. Well, Google, what do you do with our data? There is the question. You're simply not that much successful as a media platform, as a video creator, and now you video platform, and now you're trying to win in the game of dominance over the media field by banning your competitor, simply going legally through the governmental stuff. And this is the area where people from Secret Service might come there and they say, okay, we're going to help you to get rid of TikTok, but then you're going to have to push certain things we want you to push. And we know from interview with Mark Zuckerberg when he was at the Joe Rogan's, when he specified that he had some visitors coming from very high offices into his company, and they simply showed him what exactly they want him to shut down. Certain stories, certain URLs.
So some visitors showed up to Mark Zuckerberg's company
Some
Facebook.
black suits from FBI, and there is a clip of him specifying. They came there, they say, oh guys, you know how last election there was a problem with some propaganda, blah, blah, blah. You might have a similar story with somebody's laptop popping up soon. We want you to put those links down because it's fake. And it's only after the election that we found out that it was not fake. But the election was already behind. You see how that interfered the election. And then Mark Zuckerberg, he specifies that we took different approach from Twitter, where all the links were simply banned. We just shadow banned them. So amount of visitors were very limited. And then Elon Musk takes over Twitter, which was also the argument. People would say, oh, if you don't like Twitter's policies, make your own Twitter. And then Elon Musk buys Twitter and he makes his own policies. And then people are like, you cannot just take over this media platform and do whatever you want. And he was like, well, guess what? I'm going to drop some Twitter files and I'm going to show what exactly been happening behind the scenes. And in the Twitter files, which is internal messages that employees of Twitter were passing to each other, they showing that they've been receiving from one political party whole lists of URLs to ban, and they were banning them in the favor of one political party, which shouldn't be acceptable. And this is exactly, we're coming back to the point of transparency of information with these companies. This is not some legal some places where we can use legal loophole. As Jason said it before, it's using the 14th Amendment to avoid the First Amendment, right? Is it, do I?
So what's the 14th?
That's right. They use the 14th Amendment, which gives corporations protections. That's right.
Okay, what kind of protections does the 14th Amendment?
Well, it authorizes them as an entity, right?
Right.
It treats corporations as its own sovereign individual.
But there's
and
no
thus
body
they're able
to
to exercise. Exactly.
Fuck. Yeah, that's not good, is it?
Well, not when not when they control access to information. That's the greater part of this conversation, right? Like news and journalism, all in all, was meant to be a vested interest so that the public can have accountability of not only corporations and the government at large, but even amongst each other. And now you have Twitter, Facebook, Google. The bigger conversation is Google because they distribute everyone's information. And so how is the power in the people's hands? How do they have control over the dissemination of this information as opposed to just playing some party favors or pushing certain narratives is based upon who has the most money in the bag, right? And I think that's a greater conversation we need to have, you know. I really do.
Yeah, we see Google, this company that used to be this, oh, that's a garage startup. Look at these two kids from Stanford. They're doing a really good job. They're in Mountain View. But right now, this is something that we see the opposite of what we see the whole North Korea policy being applied to this platform, where any voice that doesn't align with the message of YouTube, as they say in their emails, YouTube is a safe space where you can share any message. But what they don't say is any message that only, aligned with the message that they're trying to promote.
Well, here's my question, because you two are probably more familiar with the community guidelines. You've gotten things taken down, and you've done test runs on different channels and stuff. Would you say, from YouTube to Facebook to Twitter to TikTok even, that the community guidelines are pretty much the same from this app to that app to the other? Do you think that videos are getting taken down for the same reason from all of these different social media apps, or do you think they
we see
censoring
completely
different things?
So with recent examples, we see that Rebel News from Australia, they went to Davos and they started asking inconvenient questions to Greta Thunberg, showing how she cannot answer anything if it's asked not on the pre-recorded, pre-speech that somebody wrote for her. They asked the same questions for prime ministers of different countries, Luxembourg prime minister, and over there you could see how Nas Daily, this guy promoted, who has 10 million views on 10 million subscribers on YouTube, he's promoted as one of these influencers who received blue check marks from WEF partnership program with Google and YouTube. He ran out of the building and he interrupted the interview. He was trying to take the microphone off the hands of the interviewer, only to avoid the Luxembourg, the minister from Luxembourg, to answer the questions. So you see how these guys, these influencers who we see as cool influencers, they already been totally bought and sold as property over there. What they don't understand that very soon they will be replaced by AI, but that's a different story. Now coming back to the topic, how community guidelines are working. That very video of Nas Daily trying to take out this microphone and so on, it was deleted off YouTube right away.
Okay.
It was blocked on Instagram and Facebook,
Okay.
but it made, I think, 20 million views on Twitter. 20 million views. Can you imagine how much of a demand people have for video streaming and for sharing this kind of
That's a
views?
lot. And do you know about TikTok?
So on TikTok, that's a really gray area because we see how much government is pushing on them. So what they're trying to do, I think during the previous presidency, they wanted to either ban it or take it under control, because this is one platform they couldn't control like they do with Google. And TikTok is becoming more and more loyal towards these policy guidelines because they don't want to confront. They see that they can be simply banned at all. So they are accepting this. Like, for example, the videos with protests where people protesting against YouTube, they're being deleted. They're being banned on TikTok. So far, TikTok has been one of those fields where our information has been gaining millions of views. So
I have a theory about that. We can get to that later, though.
We lost Jason.
We lost Jason. Oh, we should get him back. You can, I don't know who does the calling between there. Yeah, I think it could be coming from a deeper place of people that the public is unaware of. I don't know if it's so much the people in these social media companies as it is the people funding them and giving incentives to direct the future of these companies.
mm-hmm.
And I think that two of the major investments are BlackRock and Vanguard. They've got their hands in almost every industry, including social media. Were we talking about those two before?
These two that's very interesting that Jason got kicked out right on the topic of Vanguard and BlackRock controlling all the
I
media.
was over here laughing. I was laughing so hard, man. So
I know you have something to say on this topic.
Yeah, let's see.
Why don't you kick it off?
we'll see. We'll see how this works out here. So this is a very interesting topic because a lot of people discuss BlackRock and Vanguard, and they don't understand that they're just like a financial gurus, right? They manage people's assets, but it's like the amount of corporations and people they manage, and all of that can be traced to post World War II planning, right? Like years for years and years and years, people have been like, "Oh, these are all conspiracies. These are all conspiracies." And it turns out that they're not. And there's a lot of investigative journalism to go into this, that there was a very real effort with the CFR, the Council of Foreign Relations, the CPD, and all these policies put in place so that BlackRock and Vanguard could be set up. This is a very deep rabbit hole and a very deep conversation.
Yeah, so I mean, I think these community guidelines go deeper than just the companies themselves. Yeah.
Okay,
They do.
But
Absolutely.
when we talk about Vanguard and BlackRock, is it just like investment funds where we kind of like bunch of billionaires brought over money and we say, okay, you take care of it, make best investments, whatever? Or do they actually influence the policies of the companies they invested into? Because in some companies, they own most of the shares, right?
Cameron, can we do a quick little fact check? Can you bring up either or BlackRock or Vanguard? Yeah, let's do BlackRock and see like what percentage of real estate they own, what percentage of like just the different industries, the social media, because
and then pull up how much invested interest Vanguard is into BlackRock.
Yeah,
right? Because they feed into each other.
I believe of every industry, they're between like 12 and 40% ownership.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, for every industry. We're talking food, transportation. It's the same families of people. And
I wonder what is it on the energy market, because this is one area that has been going crazy. I just came here to New Mexico to visit your beautiful podcast from Los Angeles, and what I've been hearing from my friends, they say natural gas for the gas stoves we've been paying like $20 for past years and years. And last month we received $70 bill for gas.
I got screwed last month with my gas and electric. I was like, what the hell is going on? Yeah.
How much did you pay?
So like let's say normally in the electric's like $200, $250. They charged me close to $400 for the electric for one month, which was like, I was like, there's no way. Maybe with Christmas lights. Maybe that's the thing they used in December to maybe everyone goes, it's Christmas lights. And then the gas went up, I would say another 30, 40%. But I don't know if I was like, did I really use that much extra? And seeing how everything else is inflating, I can only imagine that they're just cranking the dial up just a little bit, putting the pressure on society.
This is one thing we've been talking about at our conference in September 24th, the Creative Society USA. We showed that this is not by accident, that the energy is going so high in price, because this is one way to control people. It's really hard to control people who are free, have a lot of money, energy is cheap, and so on.
What about over there in Detroit? In the last month or two, did your guys' utility bills like just dramatically go up?
Look, I'm laughing at myself because you're saying this, and I remember having this thought at the end of November into December when I got my gas and electric, because DTE is like the owner of everything over here. That's Detroit Edison for people that don't know.
Okay.
And my bill was $400, and normally around that time it's about 180, right? And I'm like, okay, I didn't increase my temperature because I keep things at 75, right? And I'm like, it didn't go up.
So this is national. This is across the country.
Yeah, and I was flabbergasted, to be honest with you, because there's no rectifying it, right? Like there's no one to complain to.
Well,
and you don't see it, right?
They prompt you, because let me guess. You probably got some emails like me that said, we're going to give you some recommendations on how to lower your energy usage. Because that's what I got. I got some emails from the different departments saying, we're going to give you all these ideas on how to reduce your energy usage. I'm like, I don't need to know that. I already know how to do that. Did you receive emails
Right.
like that?
Of course, but for years we meaning my friends and I couldn't prove it, but there's this idea of time of day savings, right? And we
Mm.
couldn't prove that DTE was doing this, and they just now officially rolled it out, in which you'll save money if you use your utilities outside of peak hours, right? And they're supposed to be implementing that in May, but you
Mm.
can directly do it yourself and see that if you use your stuff after 7 p.m., you'll see that your bill is lower, and if you use it before 7 p.m., it's higher,
Fascinating. I didn't know that.
and they don't disclose it.
What do you think the purpose of having timed usage of utilities is? Just another measure to control public?
Well, who knows? I mean, other than greed, but there is a very real concern with our electric grid, right? Like it's so outdated. It's really our power grid is outdated, you know.
Another topic is that solar panels only produce energy during the sunlight. So up
That's right.
until 4 p.m., you get this a lot of energy coming from solar panels, especially in California. And then we have the heat wave the last summer, and then we have Governor Newsom coming out in this jacket, like it's freezing cold in his place, probably like all the ACs blowing out cold. And while everyone is like sweating and people dying from this heat wave, and he says, do not just preheat your houses during the daytime hours and do not use ACs at night. And people were dying because it's 1:10 at 11 p.m. So it's crazy. And then at the very same time in Denver, people started noticing that their thermostats got stuck at 70 something. They could not go lower than 76.
That's interesting because I just house sat for somebody in a newer neighborhood in the city, and I couldn't get their thermostat above like 70 something. Like it just wouldn't. I don't know why, but
It was a smart thermostat, right?
I don't know what kind it was. It was a dial. It didn't look too smart, but I mean, you never know. I don't know. I felt like I couldn't get it above 70. Yeah, I could just been a dumbass who didn't know how to work it.
Yeah. And then last,
Yeah. It's you were going to mention though what was disclosed at the forum in September, which actually shows a direct relationship of like how greedy they're getting, like the push for electric vehicles, the push for solar and wind, and really there's no real trade-off when you analyze it. And we one of our friends, Dr. John On, he analyzed all that and showed that like you would actually be paying more money for these electric vehicles, for the update to your grid, for all these things that they're pushing that's supposed to be cost effective. It's not. And maybe you want to talk about that a little bit more, Tali.
yeah, so the most interesting part about solar panels and wind that, they don't produce sun at night and they don't produce energy when there is no wind. So with that, we have to have some kind of backup, right? For the time when there is no sunlight and there is no wind. Like in Germany, they have major blackouts because of that, because of long periods without wind and sun. With that, we have to back it up, and the only way to make it is through having the storage. And the battery storage is similar to Tesla batteries, just these huge batteries. So what Dr. John An from Berkeley University presented, there is not enough lithium to make the storage, the reasonable amount of storage for even like our country, not even talking about the whole world. So it's unreliable, and the reliable energy with green, so-called renewables is simply unachievable. And investments are huge because we really bet in on this sort of energy, which is depending on weather. We bet in on weather-dependent energy during the period of time of severe climate change. Just think about this. Weather-dependent energy sources during the period of extreme climate change. Does it even make sense for you to make this kind of bet? Because weather is changing when the climate is changing. So
That's
You-
a fair point. Right.
You shouldn't, yeah, we as a society, we shouldn't ourselves in the leg. And we've been seeing that the so-called renewables, they are not solving the problem of energy. It's just an add-on to existing system, which is very expensive and very unreliable. So instead of renewables, it would really make sense to call them unreliables. They cost us trillions of dollars, and now we see that in Germany, they already started taken down the windmills to open up the coal plants which were underneath them. And that's basically where Greta Thunberg was caught protesting and filmed posing to the cameras as with police officers as if
Yeah.
it was so staged. It was the most staged thing. And then we started seeing that footage started disappearing. And then in so many articles, they started publishing, especially in British press, that it was not staged and trying to justify her. But excuse me, when you being arrested, like I'm from Ukraine, I've seen the arrests our police does. I've seen the Occupy Wall Street where people got beaten up with batons into their faces. That is not how people get an arrest. And you don't smile and pose and giggle and make jokes when you're being arrested, at least.
Oh, yeah, no.
But over there is a footage of them posing different poses.
Mhm.
Oh,
I saw
take
those.
me.
I saw
Gosh.
those, yeah.
And then when they were when she was asked the very same questions by the rebel media in Davos, are you actually a protester or you're a child actor? That was the question for what they were. Their video was taken down of YouTube. And then we come into the point, okay, why do we even need to install the green energy? Because they say that carbon footprint matters, because carbon footprint, the level of CO2 in the atmosphere, is severely making our planet warmer and warmer. And that's going to cause glaciers to melt, and the ocean level is going to rise so high that all areas by the oceans will be flooded. So we have to keep it down, otherwise something bad is going to happen. Well, first of all, guys, the CO2 level in the atmosphere is 420 ppm, which means particles per million, which means that there are 415 molecules.
Oh, goddamn, dude. Let's get that off.
My pussy, fuck it. Nigga dick, yeah.
Holy shit.
Is it
Woo.
BlackRock? Is it BlackRock?
No, that was on, that was wild, man. So,
we got,
why don't we take a small break?
yeah, it's about time to take it.
Holy shit. That was wild, man. We'll be right back.
Yeah, I guess we can. Okay, guys, we'll be back.
What the fuck? We got trolled hard, dude. I don't think anyone on Twitch saw it. No, that wasn't streaming. Oh my god. Well, we'll describe it after.
Jason, have you ever seen anything like this happening? We have to be prepared for it.
Someone hacked into the fucking very quickly. Someone hacked into whatever chat window you're using with home slice. Someone hacked into it.
Okay, Pop, get away. Okay, someone just hacked into our stream, which is crazy. Okay, we have to take security much more serious. Jason, should we just change the Zoom link, because I think our Zoom link has been.
Yeah, multiple people joined.
Yeah,
Like really quickly is 1, then 2, then 6, and then that happened, but none of that streamed. So
none of that streamed. Okay, we're good.